This might be the most immersive experience in gaming, but for a huge percentage of people, it literally makes them want to throw up. Is VR actually worth it for flight sim? Because on paper, this sounds like the final evolution of simming. You put on a headset and suddenly you're not playing a sim anymore, you're inside of it. You can look around naturally, judge distance properly, and actually feel like you're sitting in the cockpit. It sounds perfect, right? Too perfect. And that's where usually things start to go wrong, because the reality of virtual reality is not what most people expect. By the end of this video, you're going to know whether VR is one of the best upgrades you can make, or one of the biggest wastes of money in flight sim. Let's start with the obvious, why people fall in love with it. VR is insane, and I don't say that lightly. I've been using VR in flight sim for over 10 years now, since the Oculus DK2. The first time you try this in flight sim, it genuinely messes with your brain. Your brain doesn't treat it like a game, it treats it like reality. Have you ever stood next to an actual plane before? Not zoomed in, not using the drone camera, but actually standing there. Because when you stand next to an actual aircraft, it's not just big, but they're f***ing huge. It's intimidating. You realize very quickly your monitor has been lying to you this entire time. Scale in VR hits completely differently. The tires feel massive, they feel real. The engines feel enormous. Everything feels real in a way that flat screens can't replicate. Then there's depth perception. On a normal monitor, you're guessing everything, especially in helicopters. You think you're close to the ground, and suddenly you're not. But in VR, you don't need to guess. Not only can you actually see how high you are, but because of that depth perception, you can actually feel how high you are. Your brain understands distance instantly, and this is where VR becomes dangerous. Because your brain gets used to that level of immersion. Everything else just feels fake. So let me ask you, if you could sit inside the cockpit or look at it through a screen, which one actually sounds better? But this is the biggest issue with VR. Depending on the study, somewhere between 20 to 40% of users in VR experience motion sickness regularly, even with modern headsets. And in broader surveys, over 50% of people have experienced it at least once. Think about that. That's not a small issue. That's potentially half of everyone who tries it. And that's not just feeling a bit off. We're talking about nausea, dizziness, sweating, headaches, and needing to stop within 15 to 30 minutes. Now, I won't go fully into why or how this happens, but here's a quick rundown. Your eyes are telling your brain that you're moving. Your body is telling your brain that you're not. Your brain thinks that something is seriously wrong, so what does it do? It tries to make you throw up. Yeah, that's not a bug. That's literally your brain trying to protect you from what it thinks is something going wrong. Now, to be fair, flight sim is one of the better VR use cases. You're seated, which helps a lot. But the second you introduce turbulence, sharp turns, or unnatural camera movements that are not with your head, and that's where things can go downhill very fast. And here's the uncomfortable truth that most people won't tell you. Some people never adapt to VR. Even after hours of use, even with the most expensive headsets, with the perfect settings, some people just aren't built for it. It really depends how bad you are with motion sickness. So ask yourself honestly, do you get motion sick in cars? Do you feel weird looking at your phone while moving? Because if the answer is yes, VR might not just be uncomfortable, it might be unusable for you. Now, let's talk about performance. VR can be brutal. You're not just running the sim once, but you're really running it twice, at higher resolution, at higher frame rates, with almost zero tolerance for stutters or lag. And here's something most people don't realize. Low FPS in VR doesn't just look bad, but it makes you feel sick faster. Even modern headsets aim for around 90 to 120 Hz, because anything lower than that, you can start to feel sick. Some people are okay with 72 Hz, but most people feel comfortable at 120. So even if you've got a high-end gaming PC, you're still making compromises. And if you don't, you're turning everything down. And you'll be wondering why your next-gen experience looks worse than your monitor. But let's be real, VR is expensive. Not just the headset, but the entire ecosystem. Headset, PC upgrades, accessories, it all adds up really quick. And here's the kicker, you could spend over $1,000 and still not be able to comfortably use VR. That's just a risky investment. And in my personal experience, this is a part that I couldn't really find many people talking about. Using VR looks really cool, but actually using it can sometimes be a different story. You've got a headset strapped onto your face, it gets warm, you start sweating, the lenses get smudged, and you're constantly adjusting it, taking it off, putting it back on. It can feel like friction, just constant friction. And that's a huge thing, because something I even evaluate add-ons in Flight Sim is, how usable is it? The user experience. Because if it's not a good one, it becomes less enjoyable. And over time, that's what pushes people away. Not just because VR is bad, but because it can be inconvenient. Now I will say everyone's experience will be different and unique. So if you're not the type of person to get as sweaty or you don't have big eyelashes, then you probably won't have that bad of a time. Now here's where things get interesting, because for roughly the same price as VR, you could build a sim rig. So instead of immersion through visuals, you could get immersion through touch, real switches, real controls, something physical. And modern setups, they're insanely good. Modular, expandable, it's basically Lego for adults. And you could build a home cockpit from this. But again, there is a catch. Now you're locked in. You build an A320 cockpit, you're flying an A320. Sure, you can fly something else, but let's be honest, it just feels wrong. But hey, I'm not the one to judge. If you want to fly your A320 cockpit with a hot air balloon, then you do you. So now you've got two completely different paths. VR gives you the freedom and immersion, where sim rigs give you realism and consistency. So what matters more to you? This is where my perspective really changed. A friend asked me, if VR is so good, then why don't you use it all the time? And I didn't have an answer straight away, because I do love it. It's one of the coolest experiences you can ever have in Flight Sim. But then it hit me. Every time I go back to my normal setup, everything becomes easier. There's no setup I need to worry about, no discomfort, no tweaking, no friction. It's just easier. And that matters more than you think, because here's the truth. The best setup is the one you can actually use. And a lot of people buy VR, use it for a few weeks, and then it just sits there. Not because it's bad, but because it's effort. There's a lot that has to go into it. So now it comes down to this. What kind of a simmer are you? Do you want to feel like you're inside the aircraft? To experience the true scale and depth of any aircraft? To have the most immersive experience possible? Or do you want something simple, reliable, easy to jump into anytime? Because VR isn't for everyone. For some people, it's the best thing they've ever tried. For others, it's a cool idea that doesn't really last. So I'll leave you with this. If you had to choose right now between a VR headset or a full home cockpit, what would it be? Drop it down in the comments, because I guarantee people are going to be split on this one. And if you really want it, I can break down the best VR headsets for Flight Sim, what's actually worth buying and what you should completely avoid. But before I do that, go check out my good mate's channel, VR Flight Sim Guy. Chances are he's already done everything you need to know about VR and flight sim. He's an absolute legend and he knows far more than I do, so go check him out. And while you do that, you may as well drop a comment down below, let me know what you thought of the video and what you'd choose, VR or cockpit. I can't thank you enough for watching the video. Make sure to hit like, get subscribed, and until next time, I'll catch you then.